In this video, I'm going to show you how to fetch data from an API using JavaScript and async, even if you are a complete beginner. So by the end of this video, you will have your own random user generator app, just like what you are seeing on the screen. That this random generator app helps you to what? To search for people randomly with their names, email, photos, and location every time you click on the button. You can see that it's a super easy project to understand. Async and await is super easy to understand, and I'm going to show you how to handle API responses and also update your web page dynamically. And this is perfect for beginners who want to start building real life projects or real life JavaScript projects. Now, have you ever wondered how they get data from the weather station, from other resources? With this idea, you'll be able to create a weather app, a random user generator, and even a YouTube app. So guys, let's dive into the code. Before we start coding, let's quickly talk about what an API is. An API is like a waiter in a restaurant. You send a request and it brings you the data you ask for. In our project, we are going to use the random user API, which gives us random user information like the name, email, location, and picture every time we make a request. Now, this is a random user API, which is what you are seeing on the screen. This is what we're going to use in this project to generate a user information like the email, location, picture, and the name. So you don't need to worry about the backend. We just ask for the data and use it in our JavaScript code. So we return to Visual Studio Code. Already I have my HTML code staring at me. You can see this is just a dummy HTML code. And I have my styling CSS. This is the CSS I've used. Now this video is not for HTML or CSS class. So I just have to get it pre-prepared. I'm focusing on JavaScript. Get that now. So, but if you want to learn HTML, CSS, I have a video on that. Please check my page. You'll see the video for HTML, CSS. So let's get started. Now, if you notice my HTML elements, I have several IDs as an attribute in each of the element tags. Look at the image tag. There's an ID called user-img. The same thing goes with my H2 tag, paragraph tag. There are a lot of IDs here. Why am I inserting the ID? It's quite easy. It's easy in the sense that I want to make reference to it in my JavaScript code. That is why I'm using the ID, which will lead us to get element by ID JavaScript. So the first thing I need to do is to start my JavaScript. So I'm using the internal JavaScript for this particular project. So I'll come here and type the script tag. Now this is where I'm going to put my JavaScript. Basically, this is where I'm going to put my JavaScript. So what do I want to do? I want to make reference. I want to reference the HTML elements. That's what I want to do. I want to call them. I want to make reference to them. So I'll put a comment here. So I'll call this DOM element reference. Let me call it DOM elements. DOM element reference. So I want to reference each of these DOM elements. The first one I want to reference is the image. So I'm using the get element by ID to reference this particular image called user-image. The same thing will be done for the others. So you can see that I've referenced the name, get element by ID user-name, which is for the name. I've also referenced the email using get element by ID email. I've referenced the location, which is get element by ID location. And I've also referenced the button, which is get element by ID new user. So I've stored them in a constant here. You can see it for yourself. This, and this. That's the first thing I need to do. Now the second thing is to create a function that will fetch the API. I remember I told you earlier that we are using the random user API, the random user me API, .me API for this particular project. So there I will come here. Let me comment this as async. I'm using the async and await. So if you want to learn more about async and await and fetch method, please check my video. You'll see some of those async and await here. So yeah, I'll comment this and I'll say function. Let me just call it function to the function to fetch user data using async. Let me come here and say using async. Using async. Using async. Using async and await. Yeah, that's what I'm using. So I'm going to create a function that will do that for me. Basically, I'll create a function that will do that for me. So this is a function I've created called the I don't know why this guy is helping me to do what I did not ask him to do. So let me ignore it. Escape. So this is a function I've created. I'm calling it fetch random user. That's the name of the function. Now, what will this function do? It will enable me to communicate, to speak to what? To the endpoint, to the API, so that I can fetch it out from there. Remember earlier I defined API for you. Told about API. Are you going to a restaurant to what? To demand to buy food. So you wait for them to what? To give you the food after you pay. So the same thing I'm doing here. So here I will come here and do what is called, I'll put it in a try catch. Now, what is the meaning of a try catch? The try catch is for you to what? To catch an error in case there's an error in the work. Sometimes API, because it depends on internet access, there may be slow internet or internet fluctuation. So it's advisable to store it in a try catch. So the block try, any successful outing will be in the try, while the failure will be in the catch. So I'm going to create a block called try catch. Try catch. That's the first thing I'm going to do here. Try catch. Try catch. So I'm going to catch for an error. Yeah, so that is the try catch. So this is just, I'm not using this. So let me take this, guys. Now this is the first thing you're going to do. So let me format my code. Sorry. Format my code so that you can see that clearly. Good. So that is what you do first. And the reason is not far-fetched. You want to make sure that in case the API breaks, in case there is a network fluctuation, I should be able to successfully catch the error and display it to the user. Oh, sorry, there is a network fluctuation. Oh, hold on, or any other thing I want to display. So now let me focus on the try block, which is here, the try. The try block is meant for everything successful. So yeah, let me show a loading state. So the first thing I want to do is to show a loading state, although this is optional. Show loading state. Show loading state. This is optional actually. This is optional. So I'll come here and I'll say username.text content equal to, take these guys out. So username.text content equal to loading. Now, some of you've done JavaScript. Like I told you, this course is not meant for beginner JavaScript. But if you have you must have a basis of JavaScript. What this username? Remember, I declared a variable, a constant called username. What this username.text content will do, it will add this particular text, which is in string, called loading, inside this name here. It's going to add it somewhere here. Remember, I've declared a variable called user-name, and I'm storing it as username. So what I'm doing, and I am trying to append a text content, and that text content is loading inside this h2. So that once I open the page, I'm going to see loading here. That's the first thing I want to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is to append the text, initialize this my email and also location as an empty string. Because for now, at the start, I don't want anything to be there when I fetch the user the API. I want it to be none. That means to be an empty string. It is only when the API has been successfully been fetched, that's when I want to populate it. So to do that, I'm going to do this. I'll call this username an empty. Yeah. So I'll make the email field to be empty and also the image field to be empty too. So I'll say user img, the same thing, source to be empty. Yeah, because this is an image, I'm going for the source. Sorry, there's no this there. Take this out. So I'm going for the source. I want these three elements here to be empty, so that when they fetch, remember that I'm fetching an API endpoint. So at the moment when they are fetching this API endpoint, it should be empty. It should only be populated when I have successfully finished consuming the API endpoints. That's when it should populate. So to do that, I will set it as initialize or initially to be what? An empty string. That is what I've just done in line 78 and line 80. So let's proceed now. So let's proceed. So the next thing I want to do, basically the next I want to do now is to fetch data from the API. Remember that the purpose of this function, fetch random user, is to fetch the API. We've not fetched any API yet. So here I'll comment this as fetch data from API. I'll say fetch data from API. So good. So now, how do I fetch data from API? It's simple. It's simple. It's very, very simple. Now look at this. Const response equal to await fetch. Const response equal to what? Await fetch. Now, what is this fetch method is all about? What is this fetch method all about? Now, let me explain to you what the fetch method is talking about. That fetch method makes a request to the API. I repeat, this fetch method you're seeing makes a request to where? The API. And where is this API coming from? It's coming from random user me.min API. So I am making a request to this random user.min API endpoint. That's what I've just done on line 82. And I am storing it inside the response. Storing it as a constant response. That's what I've just done. So here, I want to now check if I am getting the response. If I'm getting the response. So I'll come here, I'll say if it's not, that means if I'm not getting the response, that means maybe there's an error from some, oh, what's this guy doing? Maybe there's an error somewhere. If the response is not okay, then throw me an error. Remember I told you that what? Since API depends on network, you can't predict network. There may be network fluctuation at any moment. So it's advisable to what? To check if the response is okay or not. So yeah, I'm checking if the response is not okay. That's what this line is doing. Then what should happen? Then it should just tell me, throw an error, telling me network response was not okay. That's it. To throw you an error if the network is fluctuating somewhere along the line. That's what this line we do. So the next thing, if otherwise, I'll come here and I'll convert the response to JSON. So I have to convert this response to what? To JSON. Now, what line 86 is doing is going to convert the response we get here. Going to convert the response we get here to JSON. Now, what is JSON? JSON is that format that API is written on. JSON actually means JavaScript notation. So it is that data that JavaScript understands very, very well. So you have to convert the response you are getting from that API to JSON. If not, it's not going to understand what you are doing. That's why I'm using what? The JSON. I hope that is clear. That's why I'm converting the response I'm getting to a JSON.